10 random cards rated, day number 20, milestone day here. Happy Saturday, everybody. Hope you're feeling fine. Let's take a look first at the Scryfall loading Nettletooth Djinn. Oh, only ever printed in Mirage. I love this card. And I've had my face beaten in by this card. An awful lot. Nettletooth Djinn is 4 mana, 3 and a green for a 4/4, summon Djinn. During your upkeep, it deals a damage to you. Sounds terrible, right? We get 4 mana 4/4s with upside routinely nowadays, and they're just draft specials that don't see standard play. Back in the day, though, we didn't get that. This was most closely related to an Urnam Djinn, which was an important part of a deck called Urnam-geddon, where you effectively, resolve Urnam Djinn and then cast Armageddon, and then you win the game. That was the whole... Pretty easy to just win games of Magic back then, to be honest. You didn't have to strategize too much, but Nettletooth Djinn was supposed to remind us of that, and it reminded us all of that successfully. Mirage is one of my favorite sets of all time. Look at this incredible art. Look at the aesthetic of this card as a whole, not just the art, but the way the frame goes with the art. Beautiful looking Magic card, all things considered, and it's not good anymore. So with pain in my heart, I have to give Nettletooth Djinn like a 2.1. But just know that we have a long and storied history together, and I still care about it. I really do. But moving on to Mines of Moria, a good Magic card. This enters tapped unless you control a legendary creature. It is a legendary land, by the way. You can tap it to add a red mana, or you can pay 3 and a red and tap it and exile 3 cards from your graveyard to create 2 treasure tokens. Why not play this card in red? Right? I mean, if you're in Casual Commander in red, you have a red commander. There you go. You have just any commander at all. It doesn't have to be a red legendary. Just any legendary. So, like, if you're in red, you just play the card, man. Just play this card. I don't see why you wouldn't do it. I love stuff like this. Again, I'm kind of a sucker for stuff like this because my commander decks tend to end up being a mess of stuff like this, given that if I have the money for them. And this is only like 45 cents to order, so I should probably hop on that. It's a really, really sick looking Magic card. I will always love lands like this. And so I'm going to give this like a 7, I'm serious. Why would you not play this card? The activation cost is very, very high. And I understand that about it, but I just think there's going to be turns where like you definitely use it. And even if you never use it, who cares? It's still good. I probably shouldn't rate it as high as I just did, but I think a solid 7 is probably where these cards go. I really do. So I'm going to move on here. To what? Dread Return. Yes. Yes, Dread Return. Can we get to Time Spiral? Yes, we can. 4 mana, 2 and 2 black for a sorcery. Return a creature card from your graveyard to play. Flashback, sack 3 creatures. Banned in Modern for a reason. This is perhaps right next to the actual spell Reanimate. Look it up, kids. Dread Return is perhaps, and honestly, I think it stands toe-to-toe with Reanimate in some ways. Dread Return is perhaps the best or second best Reanimator spell of all time. If you're discarding or milling yourself anyway, and Dread Return ends up in your graveyard, it's free. This card is free to play. And yeah, you had to get the creatures into play, but there's plenty of ways to do that. We've seen people do it with Bridge from Below. And Bridge from Below, Dread Return was actually one of my first, aside from Yawgmoth's Bargain, was one of my first exposures to like a hardcore turn 2 combo deck with some somewhat complicated sort of machinery to it. So again, I will have a special place in my heart for Dread Return for a long time. It is surprising how much history I have with so many cards, whether they're terrible or like really good like Dread Return is. So again, Bridge from Below is mostly my experience with this, but there are lots and lots of decks that have played this throughout throughout time. There's a reason it's banned in Modern. And it's still played, I believe, in Vintage from time to time. It's played in Commander, too, because, if you're doing graveyard stuff, again, one of the problems with the typical Reanimator spell is that if you're milling yourself, you run the risk of milling your Reanimator spell into the graveyard. Well, with this, ain't no problem. Ain't no thing. So, Dread Return is so good. This is one of my favorite cards of all time. It might be in my top 100. If I ever do a top 100 favorite cards, I would look out for Dread Return. It is so freaking good, dude. Still love it every time I see it. I'm going to give this card an 8.2. And it's banned in Modern. Just remember, before you're like, that's a little high. The card's banned in Modern. Because it's a free Reanimator spell. And they went too far with that. So 8.2. Mossfire Valley. This is the green-red land that does this. We're looking at the Fallout version of it right now, but you pay 1, you tap it, and you get a green and red. So it functionally produces a mana, but it fixes your Gruul mana, I guess. These used to be in like every commander deck, and now they're just in every commander product, and people no longer actually want them. So, as you can tell, they've nosedived in price. You can get one of these for like 10 cents. That one's 13. That one's 15. Nobody cares about these anymore. But I still have to score them like relatively high. They are not bad Magic cards. So I'm going to give this like a 6.8, which is, I'm going to give it a 7. I'm going to give this card a 7. I'm serious. These non-basic lands are just better. They're just better Magic cards. Deal with it. Moving on to Demonic Attorney. I almost feel like I shouldn't count this card. I almost feel like I shouldn't. It's banned in every single format because it's an anti-card. But I'm going to count it, man. Demonic Attorney is 1 and 2 black for a sorcery. If an opponent doesn't concede the game immediately, each player must ante an additional card from the top of his or her library. Remove this card from your deck before playing if you're not playing for ante. Ante back in the day is exactly what it sounds like. It's a way that Garfield wanted. His magic as Garfield intended is to rip a card off the top of each player's library before the game even starts, before you draw your 7 cards, and just set it aside. And whoever wins the game wins that card. Bad idea. Terrible. Really not a great idea, right? So, especially if you want to beat the gambling allegations you're sure to get from like parents and stuff. So, probably shouldn't count, but I'm going to give Demonic Attorney either an NA or a solid 1. You can't play this card, but I do want to score it. I do want to score it as a 1.1 because look at that art. Look at Daniel Gellin's art here. Little Devil and Daniel Webster kind of reference. Little Devil and Homer Simpson kind of reference here going on with the devil lawyer talking to the judge, the devil judge. I love this art so much. It's so homespun and like urban legendy, like, Americana urban legendy. It's just so cool. I love this card so much. So I think I'm going to count it. It's so good. But Mind Stone is up next, originally from Weatherlight, if I'm not mistaken. I'm never mistaken. He doesn't miss. 2 mana for an artifact. Tap it, add a colorless mana to your pool. Play this as a mana source, apparently. You can also pay 1 and tap it and sack it to draw a card, as you know. This is still one of my favorite Commander rocks. If I'm going to play a 2 mana rock in Commander, it's like this. And I also really like Felwar Stone, but it's for personal reasons. There are better 2 mana rocks than Stone. But weird sentence. There are better 2 mana rocks than Stone. Concrete? I don't know. Mind Stone though is fantastic, and I'm always going to love this card. And I still put it in Commander decks to this day, and I know a lot of you do too. So been reprinted a billion times in lots and lots of Commander product, and that's because it is a playable Commander card, even all the way to this day. Massive role player that is sometimes good in eggs decks because it does extra stuff, but just good. Cash it in for a card when you don't need the mana anymore. Perfectly designed Magic card for the perfect rate. So I'm going to give this a 7.1. I think it's actually a fantastic card. Should go in more decks even, I'd say. Next is Coercive Recruiter. What is this? 5 mana, 4 and a red for a 4/3 Orc Pirate. When it or another pirate enters the battlefield under your control, gain control of a creature till end of turn and untap it. Till end of turn, gains haste, and becomes a pirate in addition to its other types. Does it sing yo-ho, yo-ho, and all that stuff? Just kind of neat. I like the flavor of this like a lot, actually. Is this actually very good? Is this like a reason, like a good payoff for playing pirates in Commander? Rather than just doing a bunch of like dinky stuff. I've seen better payoffs for pirates, but like this is pretty good payoff for pirating. And it's probably decent in like changeling decks too. You don't get all the effects like this. You have to pick and choose which ones you actually use in a changelings deck. The effects that just like do a cool thing for a random creature type and all your changelings take advantage of it. You can't play too many of them, but this I think you might if you're trying to do something fun. And I like doing fun things, but it is highly dependent on what your opponents are doing out there, which is not necessarily something I love. And it's very expensive and hard to capitalize on. So I don't know. I think I'm going to give this like a 5.2, and it's probably better than that. I'll acknowledge that it's probably better than that, but I don't think that's going to get me out of hot water with people who are like, dude, this card's a 6.5. So we'll see, man. But I'm going to look at Mog Assassin next. This is originally from Exodus. Love me some Exodus. This is 3 mana, 2 and a red for a 2/1 goblin. You can tap it to flip a coin. If you win that flip, destroy a creature an opponent controls. Otherwise, destroy a creature of that opponent's choice. So I don't like flip a coin cards. I really don't. And I've tried to make this card work in the past on the kitchen table when I was like 12 or something. And it's not, I think this might actually, the more I like dig up this memory, the more it resurfaces. Is this card the reason I don't like flip a coin cards? Is this the first card that burned me on flipping coins? Maybe Frenetic Efreet was the first card that burned me on flipping coins. It's hard to say, but I still think that I'm going to give this like a 4. Like, it's a goblin. It can kind of be a better than Royal Assassin, but you got to win your flips, and that just ain't going to happen, buddy. It is $1, though. I guess that's something. It's a fun card. It's a fun card. So there is that. But let's move on to Zujin Wu Strategist. This is 3 mana, 1 and 2 blue for a 1/1 legend. On your turn before you attack, you may tap Jin to make any one creature unblockable this turn. That's pretty good. This is only ever printed in Portal 3 Kingdoms. It is $65 because cards from that set are expensive, especially if they're playable. And this is actually really, really playable, especially if your commander really wants to go unblocked. It has like a combat damage trigger or something like that. Or if this is your commander and all of your 99 is just cards that want to go unblocked, and that would be really, really cool. I like this actually a good bit. How exactly does this work? Okay, tap. Target creature can't be blocked this turn. Activate only during your turn before attackers are declared. So that's the Oracle text, meaning that you can definitely, tap it and then untap it and then tap it and then untap it and then tap it and just send through a bunch of unblockable guys. I love this dude, man. I think this guy's awesome. And he's not even like narrow or anything. Like, he's actually, there's so many uses for this guy, whether he's your commander or not. I'm going to give Zujin that's how you say his name, isn't it? Zujin. I'm going to give this guy a 6.9. I'm so serious, dude. This guy's awesome. This guy's awesome. I wish he wasn't $65, but I guess that's what a printer's for. Moving on is Island. So we always give these 5s. We always give basic lands a 5, but I've been kind of throwing these out lately because basic lands are boring, and I certainly don't want to end the day on one. So extra card, it's Befoul. 4 mana, 2 and 2 black for a sorcery. Destroy a land or non-black creature. That creature can't be regenerated. Look at this art, too. Look at this beautiful, gorgeous art. Does it look different in other sets? Yeah, it isn't. It isn't. Okay. I knew this card. Yeah, this is from Urza Saga originally. I will say land or creature is pretty good spread. It is non-black creatures, so it's a dark banishing or a terror or something like that. So it's not completely unconditional, but land or creature is a pretty good spread of things. I don't hate this. I really don't. 4 mana at sorcery speed's too much, but I could not like it more. Like way, way more. But I'm gonna give this like a 3.8. A pretty rare score here in the series, but I don't hate it. I don't like it. 3.8. But that is it for today. One more video this week. Hope your Saturday's doing good, man. You packing it up? You going fishing? You going to the beach? You're not doing any of those things because we're all poor and we're just kind of staying at home playing video games, watching the kids, maybe cooking some hot dogs, whatever you're doing. That's good too. I just hope that whatever you're doing, you're enjoying life, my friend. I love you, and I'll see you tomorrow.